Hello, everybody. Welcome to a daily dose of the Bible. We are in Genesis, chapter 50. So this is the very end. Jacob actually just passed away, and first he blessed all of his sons. Some of them it wasn't such of a blessing. Simeon and Levi are two of a kind. They're violent and cruel. May they be scattered. Okay, but he's calling them out. Maybe they changed after that, and he's blessing everyone and saying, please take me back to where my father and my grandfather and my grandmother and my mother and my first wife are all there. So they agree to do that, and he pulls his feet up in bed and passes. So Jacob has left the earth at this point and gone to be with his father and grandfather. So in chapter 50, the last chapter, it's just continuing on with Jacob's death and burial. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph told the physicians who served him to embalm his father's body. So Jacob was embalmed. The embalming process took usual 40 days, and the Egyptians mourned his death for 70 days. When the period of mourning was over, Joseph approached Pharaoh's advisors and said, please do me this favor and speak to the Pharaoh on my behalf. Tell him my father has made me swear an oath. He said, listen, I'm about to die. Take my body back to the land of Canaan and bury me in a tomb I prepared for myself. So please allow me to go and bury my father. After his burial, I will return without delay. Pharaoh agreed to Joseph's request. Go and bury your father, as he made you promise, he said. So Joseph went and buried his father. He was accompanied by all of Pharaoh's officials, all the senior members of Pharaoh's household, and all the senior officers of Egypt. Joseph also took his entire household and his brothers and their entire household. But they left their little children and flocks in the herds in the land of Goshen. A great number of chariots and charioteers accompanied Joseph. When they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad, near the Jordan River, they held a very great and solemn memorial service, with a 7-day period of mourning for Joseph's father. The local residents, the Canaanites, watched them mourning at the threshing floor of Atad. There they named the place, which is near the Jordan, Abel Mizraim, for they said, this is a place of deep mourning for these Egyptians. So Jacob's sons did as he commanded them. They carried his body to the land of Canaan and buried him there in a cave of Machpelah near Mamre. This is the cave where Abraham had bought as a permanent burial site from Ephron the Hittite. So they made it, and apparently they have quite the mourning process back then. It's pretty cool. You would almost like to do that nowadays. Take 40 days off of work to just kind of, 40 days off of life to mourn someone who passes. That sounds about right. Maybe even 70 sometimes, or maybe 77. Maybe you need to, go to a different land to bury them. But it's a very solemn and somber occasion, and very, they understood a lot less about death back then, but they were a lot more respectful, I think, and took a lot more time to process rituals and services, But Jacob has made it back then to the land of Canaan, where he will be buried there, with a great big send-off. All of Pharaoh's officials and the senior members of his household. The next section is Joseph reassuring his brothers. After burying Jacob, Joseph returned to Egypt with his brothers and all who had accompanied him to his father's burial. But now that their father was dead, Joseph's brothers became fearful. Now Joseph will show his anger and pay us back for all the wrong we did to him, they said. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for their sin is treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of your God, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received this message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves, they said. But Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God, that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to care for you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. And that is really awesome that he already knows, he seems to be a lot more in touch with God, a lot more in tune with his relationship, that he knows that God brought him all this way. And he forgave his brothers a long time ago, so he just is surprised that they don't already know they're forgiven. The last part of Genesis is the death of Joseph. So Joseph and his brothers and their family continued to live in Egypt. Joseph lived to the age of 110. He lived to see 3 generations of descendants of his father, of his son Ephraim, and he lived to see the birth of his children, of the children of Manasseh's son Machir, who he claimed as his own. He claimed Manasseh's children as his own, I guess. Soon I will die, Joseph told his brothers, but God will surely help you and lead you out of this land of Egypt. He will bring you back to the land he solemnly promised to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear an oath, and he said, when God comes to help you and lead you, you must take my bones with you. So Joseph died at the age of 110. The Egyptians embalmed him, and his body was placed in a coffin in Egypt. And there goes Joseph, and there goes Genesis. That's the beginning of the story. The great plan that God had to create people whom he could work with to, I don't know how the original plan exactly would have gone, because it's hard to imagine a sinless world where, not even like a thought of sin. That's not even on our minds. That's amazing to imagine. But through just these 50 little chapters, people have gone from, oh wow, look at the Garden of Eden, to debauchery and sinfulness. God had to destroy a couple of cities, and he's changed a lot of things, and he's tried some different approaches. Isaac was nearly sacrificed by Abraham, and then he was tricked. Isaac was tricked by his sons, and Joseph was sold into slavery, and all these things that the book of Genesis tells us about. Just the very beginning, this was thousands of years ago, and it's not actually the beginning. The beginning was timeless time ago. I don't know, whenever God had the idea that he was gonna make some people who had a choice of if they wanted to serve him or not. He wanted to, he wanted us to be able to choose him. So that is even a greater draw, because we could choose not to. The angels were just created to worship him. And, I think he felt like, well, but they can't do anything but worship me, so I wanted to have a choice. But of course, I have no idea what God was thinking in the beginning. He just loved us and wanted somebody to love him back, I guess, with a choice. So through Genesis, it's just asking us to make that choice, to follow him, to take the abundant, narrow path, to just do what he asks us to do. Be brave and strong about it, just like these guys were. I just pray that you'll take these stories and remember that's your ancestors. That's a story for you about how God started your family, and he's going to bless you in all the ways that he's blessed everyone here. I just pray that you'll sink deep in the faith and know that he loves you and he cares about you, what you're doing, and just wants you to follow him.